Hello students, Miss Slyman here. So now we're moving into a new part of the syllabus. We're moving into syllabus topic 4. So that's really exciting. And this is stats 2. It's 2 variable stats that we're going to be looking at in this unit. And we're going to start with normal distributions. So here's everything that you need to know for the normal distribution. And the normal distribution is one type of statistical model. So there's several statistical models. There's, for example, binomial models or binomial distributions, Poisson distributions. But what we focus on this class is the normal distribution. And the normal distribution is where the idea of the bell curve comes from. So bell curves occur a lot in nature. And they're also, when we think about applying a curve to a test, this is what we're thinking about also as teachers, that most of the students should be around the middle, and you've got a few at the high end and a few at the low end. So when you're asking me to curve your test, this is actually what you're asking me to do, is to make you into this group. But you can also see it in things like, my sister just took my new nephew to the doctor, and he's in the 50th percentile for height, 50th percentile for weight, but then he's in the 80th percentile for size of his head. So when we're talking about that, we're talking about people who are at the far end. So normal distribution means that most of the data is settled around the mean. And then we look at measuring away from the mean using the standard deviation actually, but when we talk about a normal distribution, we talk about it in terms of the mean and the variance. And if you remember from our first statistics unit, variance is when we take standard deviation, so we use sigma for standard deviation, and we square it. But in your calculator, and when we talk about normal distributions, we usually talk about the mean and then standard deviations away from the mean. So we're subtracting and adding. So that's what the normal distribution is. Now let's think about drawing it. So you can draw them on your calculator in a couple of ways. So one way that we draw them is that we go into our graph, and let's put the big screen up. So let's clear this out. So we go into our graph and see I've got my plots on. So that's going to give me errors. I'm going to turn the plots off. And come down here. And this is a distribution. And I can see here the word distribution in blue. So that's second. And now I want to draw a norm PDF in this case. So I'm not going to use the draw here. I'm going to use the distribution, norm PDF. So I use the X variable, and then we're going with a mean of 5 and a standard deviation of 2, just because those are the numbers that I picked. So paste. And now I want to change my window. So in my window, I'm going with an X value of 0 to 10, and that's because I said it's centered around the mean. So if my mean is 5, then I'm picking numbers that are on equal distances away from the mean. Let's count by ones. I don't know why I said 10 there for the X scale. It doesn't really matter. Now my Y min, I'm going to make negative 0.1. My Y max is going to be 0.4. So that's saying that none of our probabilities are greater than 50%. And let's look at this graph. So you should get a nice even bell curve. And right here in the middle is my mean. So that's when X equals 5 is my mean. So that's one way that we can draw a normal distribution. We're going to use our calculator, and we're going to use that draw function later when we're actually calculating values. But if you want to draw it, and this is counterintuitive, we do it in the y equals. Yeah, so take this, and the first thing we're going to do is see what happens when we change the mean and variance. But I'm going to stop now and leave that video as the introduction to normal distribution.